Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast, my guest is Mr. Nick Jankel. Nick suffered deep depression for a good part of his life, but was unable to overcome it, which is why he is a great guest for the Billionaire Lifestyle. He can inspire with his cutting-edge millennial ideas on empowerment and leadership. He is currently launching his new book, Spiritual Atheist, which is a #1 new hot release in philosophy on Amazon. As a Cambridge-educated scientist and medic, Nick was unable to find lasting happiness with either religion or reason. It didn't help with the pills and all the other stuff too. But his depression and diagnosis with fibromyalgia, and even though he was and still is a militant atheist, he finally discovered the life-changing benefits of spiritual enlightenment. So please, stay tuned for my interview with Nick Jankel.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Emmett Muckles, named after his father, who was named after his father, and I'm bringing it to you again. My guest today is Mr. Nick Jankel, as I told you. What up, Nick?
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
Great.
So, I've given everybody a little bit of the backstory on you, but I want to hear from your point of view. How did you get to now in your whole philosophy?
Wow. I'll try and give you the short version of that.
Yeah, let's do that.
I guess through a very strange path that now I look back on it, it looks kind of obvious because I've joined the dots. But when it was happening, living it forward, it was so unobvious to me, and I was just bumbling around, taking opportunities, finding things weren't working. And actually, many of the things I did, I left a lot of jobs and careers because I wasn't happy. Yeah. And that was probably the bigger thing, was letting go of old stuff. So I started studying medicine. I let go of that because I was unhappy, I was depressed, I had chronic pain. I set up an entrepreneurial startup in the tech sort of time in the late 90s. Again, left that because I was in a lot of pain and I was burnt out and whatever. So it kind of looked like I was just leaving stuff, but actually I was gaining stuff. And that's part of my philosophy, is you have to give up something in order to have the next thing that you want and find. And that's actually really tough.
Yeah.
People don't like giving stuff up. So, you want the new boyfriend before you give up the old boyfriend. Sorry. I mean, you can do that, but it's probably not going to bring you the boyfriend you really want.
I know some people who are doing that as we speak.
Exactly. It's like looking for a life raft.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to find that raft and then I'll make my big, bold move.
But you know what, too? I find out that a lot of people are just so thirsty for something but they don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're thirsty for it. You see them like, you know what I'm talking about? It's just like when you go into those nightclubs when you're younger and you seen the guy who's just like, I need a girl, 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 but I don't know what kind of girl I want. So he's just like, but it's the same thing. But let's talk a little bit about your book, Spiritual Atheist. How did you come up with the title Spiritual Atheist?
Wow, it's a good question. It wasn't my first title choice. It sort of came while I was writing the book. And the book was originally called The Atheism Breakthrough. It's like, I was an atheist and it was great, but it also stopped me getting a lot of stuff that I really wanted in my life. So I had a breakthrough with my atheism. And then I developed it further and I was like, you know what I'm trying to really say is you can be an atheist, but not the old kind of fashioned atheist who's very blinkered and anti-love, anti-spiritual. Yeah. You can be a spiritual atheist, which means you believe that there's a spiritual side of you and a scientific side of you. And bringing those two together was the sort of the core of this book. How you do that, how you make sense of it.
You're right. Because I thought for years my dad was an atheist, but as he's gotten older, I think he's experienced life. He goes, there has to be something more. because I've seen too many things that were supposed to be jacked up that didn't get jacked up.
Right.
Or there was some kind of influence in situations that you just can't explain scientifically.
I think you talked about that thirst. People are really thirsty, but they don't know what they want to drink.
Right.
And for me, we've all got this deep yearning inside for what I would now call connection. And we're thirsty for it, but we start with going, no one tells us, well, no one told me how I could get satisfied. They're like, okay, if you have some money, if you have a good degree, so I was drinking all this stuff and I'm drinking, and now I'm 30 and I'm like, wow, I'm still so thirsty. And that was my spiritual yearning, my heart's yearning, for something, but I could never do that sort of new age thing. It was just not my thing. I don't do, lotus flowers and patchouli.
Dude, I love that. Dude, I love that stuff. I love that total hippie smell too.
Yeah, the hippie smell.
That patchouli.
My wife had it on last night, and I was like, "Wow, babe, you're really channeling the Northern California vibe."
Oh, dude, that makes me feel serene. It's like, oh, yeah, we're gonna put on some Grateful Dead in a minute here. It's gonna be awesome.
Get your white poncho out.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
But I've worked in the solar industry, and the solar industry is a very green, so it kind of follows that path. And so I got indoctrinated, and I was like, these people are so cool. Why do people give them such a bad rap? And, it was just part of the philosophy that I was going through after 2008. 2007, I started on the path, and then the world crumbled for a while.
Right.
And it just kind of made sense. It was like, you know what? I was really stuck in the world too much and need to get out and see the other side. And part of like what you do is, you turn this spiritual atheism into a leadership and life philosophy. And how do people resonate with that when you bring that to the table?
I mean, it's a quite interesting experience, actually. So on the plus side, my book is saying, listen, you can have it all. You can have the science, data loving part of you, and you can have this yearning in your heart for love and connection and compassion and friendship and community. And you can bring them both together within you.
Right.
And then you can live your life from that. And then you can lead from that, and you can run your business from that. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is the bridge between two seeming extremes. But it's interesting because I've actually found myself in some conversations, particularly online sort of trolling, falling between two angry groups. The atheists are going, what are you talking about spiritual? Are you talking bullshit? This is just the worst kind of...
That sounds like stuff. Twitter.
Yeah. And then the spiritual people are going, what do you mean atheism? What do you mean this, no God and no priests and whatever? And so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like I'm trying to say, listen, we need to bring both of these sides of us into our lives, fully, not just a little bit, fully. But people are very triggered by this conversation.
It's kind of like when you bring up, in America, Democratic versus Republican.
Yeah.
You can only be one or the other.
Right.
You can switch, but you have to
still either on or off.
Yeah, but you have to fully switch. You can't be like, well, I'm in the middle. No.
Right.
Pick one.
It's actually, at the end of the book, it talks about this a little bit in this political ideology. You're either left or right.
Yeah.
And so I was brought up in probably a more left-wing, progressive, democratic experience. But, I'm an entrepreneur and I build my own life from the bootstraps up. And I can see a lot of beauty in what would you call a Republican belief in self-reliance and in not expecting handouts, but I also have a strong belief that people need support when they're down and out, and they need empowerment, and they need help, and they need love and kindness. So I really believe in both. I'm a purple, I'm like, there's a bit of genius in both, left and right, Republican and Democrat. It's like there's a bit of genius in spirituality and a bit of genius in science. And so for me, the real difficult stuff is not being in one camp. It's easy to be in one camp. And just because it's ideology. It's like, well, I've got my whole life, my whole worldview worked out for me by someone else.
Right. But you know what? Here's the funny thing when it comes to spirituality and when it comes to science, as it drills down, kind of supports spirituality, because now we're just getting into the energy center of how things flow. And for me, it's literally all about the intelligent energy.
Yes.
And we just haven't been able to pick up that thing yet that says, oh, that's it. Like one day you're going to turn on a supercomputer, electron microscope, telescope thing and go, and God's going to go, hi, peekaboo, I'm here. Exactly. And I'm male and I'm female and I'm this and I'm that, you know.
Exactly. I'm all of it.
Yeah.
That's the key. I'm all of it. And I mean, you can definitely see the beginnings of some understanding of how science can account for some of the stuff that one experiences in one's consciousness, which is what, for me, spirituality is about how you cultivate your consciousness, your experience of unity and togetherness and getting out of anger and fear and into love and creativity. That's very practical spirituality for me. But I do believe that science will, because science it looks outside.
Yeah.
That's its whole point, is it goes that way. It's an external gaze. We can turn it on us and we can obviously measure our brain stuff and microtubules in the brain and vibrations of, you know, gamma waves of the brain and stuff. But I still don't think that will ever fully account for the experience I have of love when I meditate and feel it.
Exactly. You know, one of the things I've always wondered about or just pondered is we've tried so hard, so very hard to replicate ourselves outside of ourselves. And we've made strides. And that's part of the billionaire lifestyle. When I tell people, and you'll hear it at the end, that you really should appreciate yourself because you're a spiritual marvel, you're B, a physical marvel, and C, it's really hard to make a human. I mean, a marginally functional human. And when I just say, just wiggle your fingers. I'm like, do you know how many engineers it took just to get an arm on a robot, just to be able to like grab a deck of cards? We're a really spectacular species. Besides that, we've been given free will.
Right.
This is what the billionaire lifestyles are like. You have been given a life and you've been given free will. So that means it's yours. So you have to come up with it, but I don't have what they have. You've been given a life. Start there and then move forward. And part of that is with like your take with your book. How can people adapt from your book's mindset to manifest the things in their life and encompass it all so that they can live full?
Whew. That's another big question.
Boom. Chugga, chugga.
Yeah. So how do I approach that? I mean, one of the things, just to mirror what you said, because it's so important. I mean, we all get caught up in, I don't have this and I don't have that and I wanted this, and feeling, you know, that something's not happening that we want. And just to realize how many ancestors we had that made it to reproduce. Just our line, not the species, our line. How many didn't make it? When you watch a nature show, how many don't make it to the reproduction stage of their organism, right? So to you living right now, tens of thousands of ancestors of yours have made it to mate and to bring up a child, whether it was an ape or whatever it was, where, you know, a little newt at some point. It's incredible. I mean, that's incredible. So I think you said something really important in what you said, which is, I think, the first stage of living a truly purposeful life, which is, I think, what I would think is the most important thing, is to own it. It's to own yourself, own your own experience, own your own life. And I guess part of that is own your own trauma. Because for me, trauma is what stops us being free. And so for me, just trauma, so we don't go into thinking it means I was terribly traumatized by abusive parents or whatever. Trauma is, for me, is anything that your mind and body can't handle at the time it was happening.
Yeah.
And so it gets pushed down and parked for some later date. And that's what stops us being free and being powerful and being purposeful and fully in action and present with our loved ones and whatever else. So we have a saying in our business, own your own trauma or it owns you. And that's a real, start.
I'm taking that one.
Right.
I'm going to use that one.
It's a free license. Goes viral. And I think that's a really, important start point. Own your own life. But there's a kind of ... at the end of that sentence. Own your own life, but remember it's not really yours. It's in service of the whole that we're all part of.
That was a good one. That was really good because, a lot of people, especially nowadays, and I was remarking to my wife last night, I'm like, honey, I'm coming home because we had a birthday party to attend. And in my back, in the rearview mirror, I just see this person who is just on me. So I get past that person. Somebody else is just on my tail. It's been snowing here too. I'm like, what is wrong with people? Do you not have any sense? Like that's dangerous. But we've been in this stage, and it might be global to a certain extent. People are so me, but it's not overt me. It's kind of like they're just oblivious to the broader sense of things nowadays. And I think part of that is with social media. And a lot of what you do is you deal with businesses and you deal with personal in your book. And you have 3 threats, that kind of mess with it. And I believe you talked about one, but if you could,
a little bit. Yeah.
If you could break into the 3 down.
So for me, the reason why this conversation is more important than it might seem to, whether you're a spiritual atheist or not and blah, 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 who cares? Just get on with my life. It's actually really important because, we're about to face, or we've started to face this triple threat, to not just your own life, our lives, your business, your enterprise, your community, but to the species that we're part of. And it's only just the beginning of it. So we're just getting flavors of it. So the fires in California, just a flavor of it.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little, they're a little, sample sale before you get to the main, to the mall. And so the triple threat for me is, these exponential technologies, which are, no one has a clue how when you put artificial intelligence with robotics, with the Internet of Things, with sensors, with, virtual reality, and you put it all together and you put it into our world, no one has a clue what it's going to be like, but we know it's going to be very different. So that's one thing, one threat. Second threat is the world's culture is changing. We've got this resurgence of right-wing energy, got populism, we've got millennials changing everything and people saying, it's enough, I don't want to be victimized and oppressed anymore. So this massive cultural melting happening. And so that all the old structures and orders are no longer really working very well to deal with that. And then the third, which is probably the most important, is what I would call existential risks to our existence. So we've got obviously climate change, but we've also got air pollution, which is massive. We don't even realize how many people it's killing. It kills 1 million people a year in China alone, air pollution.
Yeah, I've been to Philippines and it was, I thought California was bad. Yeah. I was in Manila.
Yeah.
I literally could not see a mountain.
Right.
I mean, I could see the smog at ground level.
Right.
That just blew me away.
And that's not even the stuff you can see.
Yeah.
The biodiversity, so the number of species has gone literally off a cliff since the 70s. And that could just break down all our food systems, and depression and stress and anxiety, which is now 1 in 3 kids in the US is now, anxious and stressed. I mean, that's just madness, right?
Yeah.
That's the existential risk. So, but the challenge and exciting thing is this triple threat's all coming together in one period of our lives, the next 20, 30 years. And on the one hand, it's terrifying. And the part of us all has what I call the protector, just wants to run away and just focus on money and easy stuff and spreadsheets, wherever you go to find some control and whatever. But there's another part of us that we can start to bring out, which starts to be creative and collaborative. And, we're only going to get through this if we work together. That's very clear to me. We can't fight between Black Lives Matter and the intellectual dark web, all these different little mini groups. We have to all come together to deal with this, right? And that's why this spiritual piece is so important, because without a deep spiritual connection, we can never really get out of the protection and the control. It's just it's impossible, I think. I don't know. There's no other path other than that deep wellspring of love within us and purpose. So that's why it's so important, because when the world's going to crazy, as you described, we either revert back to old patterning to try and grab what's mine and just try and fight you off, and I'm going to have my little bit of land and my little bit of food and whatever. Or we have to find something bigger than ourselves to relax into. And then we can be collaborative and caring. And that's the bit why spirituality is so important in the conversation. But we also need the atheism. We need the science. We need the technology. We need all that stuff. We can't just go and live in a mountain, in the Appalachian Mountains and escape. There's no escape from the threat. Yeah,
there was there's a documentary on HBO, which is called, hold on, let me look. The Truth About Killer Robots.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't go into necessarily, it talks about Volkswagen, and AI and how it's changed the dynamic of this world, because people now are choosing, like, I don't get along well with other human beings, so I'm just going to go buy this $10,000 robot that I can get down with when I want to, and she talks back to me, and I'm good, and I'll get her updated. She'll learn my patterns and how to react. But then there's robots, how they're displacing us. We have cars that are autonomous now, that literally you get in, open up your iPad, and you say, go to Target. Because I'm going to pick up some eggs. And even that, you don't even have to do that. My wife doesn't even like to go grocery shopping. She's like, I hate grocery shopping. I'm like, that's my meditation. She's like, why don't you go with me? I'm like, it doesn't take two people to go grocery shopping. So what do? She pulls out her phone and she orders everything online and it's delivered to us. I would have never thought that when I was a kid. So you're right. And I also see, like, I put two and two together. Like, I always talk about this. When I was a kid, there was a song by The Fifth Dimension called The Age of Aquarius. And I was like, what are they talking about? This was in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
But now we're literally going through it, and it's a time you see everything shifting. Kind of like the Bible says, everything you thought was A is actually going to be Z. Everything you thought was going to be Z is going to be A. And all that stuff in the middle is going to get twisted around as well. So I understand how some people are depressed because the world is nothing like they've ever known. I understand their anxiety. I experience it. And it's hard to keep up because every 18 months, it's something new. Yeah. Like, even the language is new.
Right.
And, you've delved into, like, the three threats. And then you also bring up, like, there's two, like, psychological modes or key psychological modes / mindsets that we all have to master.
Mm-hmm.
Explain those modes so that people can have a foundation for your book.
So that's really where a lot of my work comes down to, is mastery of these modes. Because once you even know that there's two different ways of operating, you start to get choice. And being choiceful is what we need in this crazy world. We need to know there's an alternative. So most of us spend most of our time in what I call control and protect mode. It's not wrong. It's not bad. It's just does what it says on the tin. It's
That's
there to
the ego.
Control the crazy and protect us from stuff that's scary. The only problem with it is it uses old habits, because it's all it's got. So it just repeats stuff that worked when we were 15 or 17 or 23. And we're kind of like a robot, actually, in many ways. And we get a new threat. I'm going to just be controlling, or I'm going to freak out, or I'm just going to disappear and run to the hills, right? So that's one option. And then this other mode, which I call create and connect. We also all know it very well. We had much more of it when we were a kid. When we're intimate, when we're vulnerable, when we're sharing, when we feel safe and loved and warm. And we open up. Literally our brain opens, our eyes open, we see more, we explore new possibilities, we imagine. And because we've got these new problems facing us, we get to choose, do you run away from them? Or do you go, my belief, which I call through, up and out? So another part of my work is this J-shaped sort of roller coaster curve of change. And when we're in control and protect mode, it's tempting to try and go backwards and go, can we just go back to a time when it was kind of okay? And in some ways, this make America great again is kind of like that meme of, can we just go back to the 50s when everyone had a decent job and everyone had a couple of cars? And if you working class and you worked the 8-hour day, you could live a great life. But the problem is it's gone. Not that it was great for everyone. That's the other thing we should always remember. It wasn't that great for everyone. If you weren't, essentially a white man, it probably wasn't that great anyway.
No, yeah, it wasn't.
But let's say it was great and it was amazing. And it was like a halcyon day of dream-like Americana. It's gone.
It's gone.
The world has moved. It's never coming back. We have to go down and in and out. And the only way to do that is to open up and to see this constant change. And you said 18 months. I mean, nowadays it's like 3 months. I mean, I'm working on a project and then next thing I know, there's a new update and I'm like, oh, my whole app that I'm designing is now out of date already. Oh my God. And it's bewildering and it's confounding and it's terrifying. But if we don't find a way to get this creative and connected mode being not all the time, but just, every day having time to be curious and reflective and open and imaginative, we end up just repeating stuff and realizing we're out of date, we're irrelevant, we're obsolescent. And that's whether you're a manager, whether you're a father, we become obsolete. And that's just very painful.
That's true because I've changed my style. And because we come from this hard industrial time where you do what I tell you to do. That's not the way anymore. Now it's like,
exactly.
Excuse me. Like, all right, we got this problem here. I know how to solve it, but mine might not be the best way. Let's see what you think too and see if we can come up with a solution. Oh, so what you were thinking is kind of like what I was thinking. Okay, let's do that.
Right.
I literally had to change my management style.
Totally.
Because I remember one time this guy looked at me, he was like, God, you're a dick.
You're a dick and a dinosaur.
Yeah, but I came up in that and like after that position, I literally reevaluated. I was like, why did that guy call me a dick?
Wake up call for the millennial. You're just a dick.
Yeah, and I was about 30 in my 30s when that happened, and I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he was right.
Well, that's why this control and protect mode, it believes it has the right answer because we had some solution to a problem in the past. The thing to realize is these days, although our problems, the new problems we're facing might have some similarities to what we have dealt with in the past. No one's ever had to deal with robots, autonomous cars, drones all at the same time. No one's ever had to deal with, I don't know what the population of the States is right now, 350 million people all needing healthcare. No one's ever dealt with these problems before.
Right.
So we can't just use exactly the same ideas. And in that moment where you ask someone, I've kind of got this sense, what do you think? And they bring a bit of their own insight. Then you get this kind of melting alchemy of an idea that's better than either one of you could have done.
Yeah.
You can only get there if you're willing to not have the right answer for a moment, which is very scary to control and protect mode, which is like, I have to be right. And everyone's looking at me to be right. And so when I work with CEOs, they're also under stress and pain because everyone thinks they should have the right answer. But actually, we say, no, we don't expect you to have the right answer. You're 63. You've got some great wisdom and experience. Brilliant. But we're 32 and I'm working with this customer every day. I've got some really good ideas what they need.
Yeah. And that's the thing, what I tell people is from like my management style. I realize this. I tell them, I don't know everything. You know your job. I need you to come tell me what you need to make it better, make it more efficient, make it easier, make it more enjoyable. So you're like, this sucks, but I got to do it. Versus if I just had this claw hammer, I could do this with music in my head. And it's really, you know, dun, 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 clack, clack, clack. I would get more done. And I think that's what stops us from mastering like these modes, is that we're stuck in our own being versus looking at, like I said, I always tell people, take your eyeballs out if you can, metaphorically, and reverse them so that you can see what's happening from the other person's point of view. Because we will lie to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's how things play out. So with these modes, and you've broken down like threats, modes, and are there any other items that can keep people from mastering these modes so that they can navigate?
Well, you just mentioned it, right? Biologically speaking, what determines what mode we're in is not what we just think we should be in. It's what we feel. It's the emotional processing parts of our brain. So we want to be creative and innovative, or we want to connect with our son or our girlfriend or whoever it is, cognitively. But if emotionally we're feeling stressed, threatened, upset, triggered, literally biologically, you cannot be in this create and connect mode. You say you are, but the person knows you're totally not. You're using, a posh language to say, I really want to listen to about your ideas, my employee, but your eyes are all in, focused and whatever. So emotional mastery is the key to mode mastery. And emotional mastery takes a long time. Just as you said, picking your eyes out and looking from the other side, biologically speaking, when we feel threatened, empathy is literally cut off. This is clever because if your woolly mammoth is charging at you, you don't want to be going, I really wonder what this feels like from their point of view, this saber-toothed tiger as it eats my throat, Biologically, we're like, oh my God, I'm threatened. I don't want empathy for this thing. I want to hate it. I want to objectify it. I want to push it away and I want to pull it down, So the key to the mode mastery, so if you work backwards, the threats are coming. No one gets out away from these threats. Literally no one. Even if you're retiring today, this is your last day in the office, you're going to have to deal with this if you have grandchildren, children, or even want to have a life of your own. Secondly, the only way to deal with new threats is to have creative thoughts, creative solutions, and that means to be in a different mode. And the third point is the way to be, know what mode you're in is to master your emotional self. And that's where we get back to the spiritual piece, because I have just I've been to medical school. I went to science school. The only thing I've ever found that can reliably help you master your emotional state is what we would call spiritual practice or wisdom practice, and that could be a meditation, that could be running, it could be reflection, it could be ecstatic, raving like I used to do in clubs. As long as it's conscious, as long as you're using it to find who you are inside and find where you are and to not lose yourself. That's what you need. You need some kind of wisdom practice or more than one. Maybe it's going to Target, as you said, it's your
I say that too.
The prices coming to me. I feel relaxed.
Retail therapy.
Exactly. I can own everything for 99 cents. We have to build these things because we need emotional mastery. And one of the things, so we're building a school at the moment for one of our kids. And one of the things one realizes, no one teaches us this stuff in our entire education. Often when I do a keynote, senior leaders at Google or Intel, all these companies I work with, and I say, put your hand up if anyone's had more than 1 hour of teaching in their entire education about how you feel and think inside and how to master that. Literally no one, no one. You're like, right, so how can you possibly master leadership?
Yeah.
If you don't know what it feels like to when you feel threatened, where do you feel it in your gut? When you feel relaxed, where do you feel it in your throat? What happens when you're in a creative place? What happens when you're trying to control someone very subtly though? And that stuff, that's the mastery. And that's the long work of going inside. And science can give you clues, but the only way to understand yourself is to go inside yourself. And that's the spiritual piece of the spiritual atheist.
Awesome. So how can people find you Nick?
You take the A23 south from London. No, don't.
Are you in Wales?
Please phone first.
No,
if you want to find my book, easiest thing to do is go to the company we love to criticize is Amazon and pop it in Spiritual Atheist or Nick Jankel. I've got other books out there as well. So that's how to find the book. But everything I do comes ultimately to one website, though I have lots of projects. It's switchonnow.com. So as in switch on and light, switchonnow.com. And you can find free stuff, free meditations, sample of the book. You can find keynotes, videos I've done on the future of leadership and the future of technology, our leadership programs, our personal development programs. Also, I'll be running a program in the US in early 2019 in Santa Cruz, a 3-day workshop on
Santa Cruz
and more. Yeah, beautiful place, right?
I know, right?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Make sure you go to that little cove that they have in Santa Cruz where you can watch the surfers.
Ooh, that sounds good. I'm going to have to get my poncho out so I can code switch into Santa Cruz.
Oh, there's a cool vegan restaurant there too. Oh, exactly. I told you, I am that guy.
I'll become vegan.
Yeah, if there wasn't a hole in my afro, man, I would have dreads all day.
Exactly. So, come and join me in Santa Cruz.
When is that going to be?
That's going to be in February 2019.
Man, that would be perfect time to go to Santa Cruz too. Well, it depends because California can be either on fire or it can be. It's straight out of the Bible. Like one day they have fires, the next day they have floods and frogs hanging out the sky.
I'm hoping February in Santa Cruz. It's usually pretty nice. I live in LA, and February can be pretty nice in that part of the world.
It really is.
Certainly may not be so warm, but it should be light and good. That good sunshine.
Look, it's negative. I mean, it's like 6 degrees where I'm at. So anything above 32 degrees Fahrenheit is great to me. I mean, I have a t-shirt on if it's above 32. It's like, it's 33 degrees. I'm going outside in shorts.
Exactly. It's this time of year when springtime hits us and I'm like, from that minute till about October, maybe even November, I'm in shorts and t-shirt for the rest of the year, even if it's freezing. I'm like, that's it. I'm in.
Right.
I'm basically a Californian living in Northern Europe.
Yeah. What about Facebook, Twitter?
I've got all those things. Twitter is well worth looking at. I tell you, Instagram is probably where I'm really trying to spend more time. Just look for Nick Jankel on Instagram. Facebook, we've got a Switch On Facebook page, and LinkedIn. If you're into business stuff, LinkedIn's a good place to find me.
Yeah, it's really funny how, like you say, things change. Remember a couple years ago, let's go back like 10 years, 10-year span.
Yeah.
MySpace was the thing. No one could think like nothing else is going to be better than this. And then Facebook popped up and it took over like, you don't even hear about MySpace. Now that's slowly changing to where Instagram.
Yep.
Because it's not as offensive. Mm-hmm. I don't really want all of your views.
Mm-hmm. Not as controlled either.
Yeah.
I feel like it's as controlled.
So we give you 1 minute to get it done, period. Yeah. No matter what you do. And so in about a couple of years, there's going to be something else. So we always have to be adaptive in this world. Well, Nick, I really want to thank you, man, because it was great talking to you.
It's been great fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. We wish we could go for hours with a pint.
So this is what we'll do. We'll just revisit each other in about 3 to 6 months and we'll do it again. Cause then we'll talk about that Santa Cruz thing. You're like, oh yeah. You're like, Emmett, I was there and frogs and rain and fire fell out the sky.
Right.
And I went surfing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know how this ends. This is the Billionaire Lifestyle, and you were born a billionaire. Remember, when you get out of bed, you mumble into the shower and you take a shower, come out and drop that towel and wipe the fog off the mirror and just bask in your glory, man. That is how you came into this place. And what you don't realize is if you get really close, there's these bunch of little things called cells, and they're all working together to keep you nice and cohesive and healthy. And they are their own universe. And in that ecosystem lies your billionaire lifestyle. Because if you think about when your mom and dad, or however two cells got together that began to replicate, 30 days later, 2 to the power of 30, there were over 1 billion cells. That was just your start. So just think how you've grown and replicated since then. When you really want to encompass the outside world, I want you to start with yourself. Get close to the mirror. Notice those 2 nebulae that are next to that canal that brings air into your life, into your body to sustain life, and see how as above, so below. Nebulae in the sky, nebulae in your eye. As above, so below. As you think things, your body responds. As above, so below. If you think nobody loves you, sometimes you don't get the verbal communication. They do it with their nebulae to your nebulae, and they'll give you a look. So next time you don't think you're loved, just start looking. And you don't always do it with your eyes. Sometimes you have to do it with your heart to see what's available to you. And if you don't feel love, listen to my voice and just play this over and over. I love you. Till next time, peace.